Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Cookiecast. On today's show, we've got a sit-down with Sam Muscroft. This is Sam's technically second time of being on the podcast, although the first podcast, me and Sam made an executive decision to sort of bin. So there'll be mentions throughout this of Sam's first podcast or a previously unreleased podcast that Sam had done. Shortest version is there was part of it that Sam wanted to edit out because he felt he didn't want that to be out there in the world. Nothing bad, nothing nefarious. It was just the fact that he didn't want to have to deal with certain aspects of that first podcast. And he felt that the second go through was a lot more comfortable, a lot better all round. So we had a conversation. Shortest version is that we decided that this should be Sam's first podcast and we'll basically bin the other one. Just sort of covering that off so that when you hear mentions of Sam's other podcast and you go, well, I haven't heard it, that's basically why. For all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist anymore. So take this as Sam's first podcast and forget the other one ever existed. There's a natural break in this one. This is a two-parter. There's a nice natural break. Me and Sam did close to 3 hours. I think we both needed a little lie down by the end of it. So the natural break was good. I think it was a toilet break and a refuel on the drinks. So that was that. Great to have Sam on. I've had Sam on multiple times since, weirdly enough. We did an episode that's going to be coming up after the second part of this one. And then Sam's been involved in a podcast project that we've got going on at the moment, which hopefully you'll hear soon. One of the new elements that we're trying out. So great to get Sam on. Hopefully Sam will come back. Like I say, he's been back multiple times already, but you won't have heard that yet. So hopefully you'll look forward to hearing a lot more from Sam. Another great guest. So have a look, see what you think. And yeah, hold on for the second part, which will follow directly after this one. Right, podcast time, let's do this. There, we're recording now, so we can now carry on.
So not keep on nattering about a load of nonsense.
Yeah. Sam Muscroft, returning podcast guest, but not at the same time.
I feel
be cryptic.
No, well, I'm sure the first one will go out in some form eventually. So, maybe.
To give a little insight into what I mean by that, this is Sam's second podcast, but the first one hasn't been released yet because we've had a weird backlog where we've been doing them, then releasing them, and then doing one from a while ago. So I've got one to release this coming Tuesday, and then Sam's is going to be the Tuesday after. However, Sam has requested a small edit of the original one.
I feel like I should put some ground rules in place, sort of going forwards, and the ground rule will be no politics, no religion. we're not for some reason during the first half an hour of that podcast, we decided to just go off on one. And while I'm not, offended by anything anyone said, I'd happily stand by it, I also don't want to deal with it.
And I, as a podcast host, have to respect your wishes to remove anything you don't want on there. And basically, we're going to record this one, then we're going to edit the first one, and then once we're both happy, we'll then code it up.
No religion, no politics.
Which is fine. As you can see from my current show notes, which I will admit, only half of the show notes are there. There's another screen hidden away in the background that is going to have what could be a new segment, but we'll come to that much later in the podcast.
I'm filled with trepidation.
You should be filled with dread.
Oh.
Because you couldn't be much more put on the spot.
Oh, no, Andy. Don't be that guy, man.
It's a podcast about politics and religion.
just endless really.
So Brexit, give me your rundown. And if you could talk about the Pope while you do it, that'd be great.
But my problem, Andy, is not that I don't. I would love to go into politics and religion. Honestly, I'd love it. But the problem is, once I start, I can't stop.
There is no off switch.
Exactly, and I know what I'm like, and sometimes it's like maybe I don't need this out there. Although it'd be hilarious to get some of our regular podcasters. We run the whole gamut from sort of political spectrum, and not going to name any names, but it would be quite amusing. But it would end in rough shoving and hair pulling.
There would be some might say violence.
Yeah,
some might say that.
It would. They'd be throwing
insults.
I was going to say
pint glasses.
Yeah.
People through windows.
Beanie Babies, whatever.
Oh, Beanie Babies. What did I say? Oh, yeah. This isn't how I intended to start, but fuck it, we're in now. Pokemon. Pokemon's like... I don't want to say back, because I don't know if it ever left.
Pokemon has been the unkillable franchise.
Yes, that's
it's
what I'm looking for.
It's basically completely evergreen.
Yeah, so there's like... And me, I didn't do the Pokemon thing.
You're a little bit older than me, and I was arguably a little too old for Pokemon when it came out.
I didn't do the games, which part of me... There is a part of me that's like... I kind of wish that I had done in some ways. Not like I'll pine after the... But it was the... Was it the 3DS or the DS sort of era of Pokemon games, and people just raved about them. They were like
there was the original Game Boy and Game Boy Advance ones back in the day. They were probably still the best selling ones, but they've had them on all of them in Nintendo handhelds, and they just keep on releasing them. They keep on selling.
Then there was colours. There was blues and blacks, and
the last one was Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which I do own and is in shrink wrap, like many of the games that I buy these days.
Okay, and I think anytime something splits off, which is the conversation we were just having when I was like, oh, let's record something. Anytime something splits off, I'm instantly not interested because I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at.
I find this about the whole all comics, especially superhero comics, have got this big thing.
Yeah, so this is the conversation we're having. Again, a bit of I don't know, background, relevant sort of information. We were talking about Spawn, and we were talking about the comics, the animation, the collection of figures I've got, the Corn videos that Todd McFarlane animated, and I said I was very, very, very close the other day to getting a Spawn tattoo. Whole other story, which we might actually come to later. I was going to ask a tattoo related question. However, when we started talking about the Spawn comics, I was saying I would love to pick up a Spawn comic now, because I haven't read one in...
Are they still going?
I believe so.
I sort of assumed that it had gone on permanent hiatus or something, because I don't remember seeing like the graphic novels or collections in quite a while, but it could be that I just wasn't looking for them.
The power of the internet will provide some.
What did we do before we could just,
We could just Google.
Yeah, we just had to make up stuff and people had to take us at our word.
Spawn comic. I'm kind of looking to see if I could... Can I buy one right here and now, is the question.
The best question is, should you?
Should I? Right, May 9th, 2018.
Wow, okay.
Issue 1, Spawn 285.
Jesus.
May 2nd, 2018, 285. 28th of March, 284. So I'm going to say, yeah.
If you sort of go back and assume that one was released a month, that's 20 years worth of Spawn. Which sounds
and when I said, I haven't read a Spawn
25 years worth of Spawn, nearly.
Yeah, I haven't read a Spawn comic I would make an estimated guess as it's going on for nearly 20 years.
But who's buying it?
Somebody's buying it.
Someone must
be
going to cancel it.
Todd McFarlane has been given the green light to make a Spawn movie.
You see, I'm kind of, I would say excited, but I'm interested to see what they could do with the Spawn film, because the 1994 one, the one with Martin Sheen in it, is a travesty. It's absolutely awful.
Now then, here's something, because I'm not going to disagree with you. but I'm going to disagree with it. No, I'm not going to disagree, but...
It's like defending Batman and Robin, man. Come on.
There is no way to defend Batman and Robin. The Batsuit had nipples. That's all I'm going to say there. There's something about Arnold Schwarzenegger ad-libbed nearly all of his lines in that film.
In Batman and Robin, it's got so many like cold-based puns, but you can tell by the end they were really, really running. They were running dry on these.
Something ice, something cold water-based,
and some of the puns started to get really laboured.
Have we used freeze yet? What about I don't know. Have we used a cold-based pun?
You want to take me back to the cooler?
Everybody freeze. I mean,
it's a travesty.
Done there, right?
It's a travesty, but it's a wonderful travesty.
But part of the reason I nearly got a Spawn tattoo was because of a much longer conversation. But I loved Spawn. I read issue 1 all the way through to issue whatever it was when I stopped reading comics. And the movie came at a time for me when I was big into comics. And I was talking to somebody the other day about Tim Burton's Batman.
Oh, Stone Cold classic, man.
Original Batman.
As is Batman Returns, so that's more Tim Burton-y than Batman, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So Batman, you could argue that there's not a lot of Tim Burton in it, whereas Batman Returns, it's just Tim Burton.
Yeah, Danny Elfman's score is really prominent.
So somebody... how do I lay this out? So, tattoos... Right, let's start there. So, the tattoo I had done the other day... the tattoo I had finished the other day was a Batman tattoo, which I was going to talk to you about as a Batman, DC, Marvel versus kind of thing. Anyway, I think it's on the list somewhere. So, I had a Batman one done, then we got into a conversation with people there about the Joker. Somebody said, Heath Ledger, best Joker there was.
That's obviously not true because it's...
Cesar Romero.
No, it's Mark Hamill, obviously. Cesar Romero, if just for his painted on moustache.
Yeah. So, it's amazing how things all come together. So, here we go. So, we started talking Jokers. Heath Ledger's the best, and then the next statement was, although you'd be hard-pushed to beat Cesar Romero, somebody was saying something, and then they were saying about, have a Joker tattoo done, which in as an aside, that's what happened. I ended up with a Joker tattoo, or the start of one at least. So I said, if you're gonna have a Joker one, the problem for me is tattoo wise, I'd want to get the Batman animated series Joker, because in my world there's so much that goes together really well about that. So that is to me, when I think of the Joker, I often jump straight to that one.
I think about that's kind of the definitive Batman to me, is the animated series Batman.
Really is. Here's something, and this is a conversation we had the other day. I had in the Tattooist, that Harley Quinn was created by the Batman animated series.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She had never been in Batman up to the 90s animated series. The comics went, she is a fantastic character, and the comics picked her up off the back of this animated series. Another one of those stupid facts.
What's the name of the character designer for the animated series? Because his Harley Quinn is sort of again the iconic Harley Quinn. Really.
Well, I mean, was it Bruce Timm back in there?
Bruce Timm's the guy. Yeah.
Bruce Timm. I mean, the man's a geek god.
Yeah. I think I may have mentioned on the first podcast.
I think Bruce Timm's name was mentioned
on the first podcast. I think I mentioned it there and then that I have an art book by him, and there's got a lot of naked girls in it.
Because I was just about to say, at one point I picked up an art book of Bruce Timm's and was like,
I think we've mentioned this before.
We talked about it, yeah.
But yeah, it's like you like Supergirl, and you like girls without their clothes on.
I mean, because now I'm having flashbacks of our first podcast, but I think we might have had a Power Girl conversation. I think there was a conversation about it.
He likes Power Girl as well, her little window in her suit. The cleavage window. That's like the definitive cleavage window.
She's got the big boobies. I was saying, if I ever see an animation of Batman where Mark Hamill isn't voicing the Joker and Kevin Conroy isn't voicing Batman, I'm out.
Yeah, but in fact, there have been a couple of sort of animated sort of films that DC have done. Because they've done loads, of course, over the years, and some of them haven't had those actors, and it's always been really odd to me.
It's funny because I watched one the other day.
Was it Under the Red Hood? I think I saw that had didn't have Mark Hamill as a Joker.
Yes, it was Jensen Ackles.
Right, because I remember watching. All I could think of all the way through is this is weird. This isn't right.
And it's equally as weird when they do one and not the other. Kevin Conroy's Batman, but not Mark Hamill's Joker, is like, this is so wrong. And I don't think they've ever done it. But I watched Batman Ninja, which I've been really excited to see.
I keep meaning to watch that. It's been on my to-watch list for a while.
All I could think watching that entire thing was, Sam would love this. It's like somebody went, what kind of anime would Sam want to watch? Let's make that. And I sat through it going, Sam would love this.
I'll have to get it on the...
It's Batman. It's Japanese. It's heavily Japanese influenced. And at the back end, it turns into Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, Sam, what do you want to see in an anime? Batman from Japan. Got any giant robots? We've got a couple lying around. Do that then. Okay, we'll do that then. Literally... It's like, oh, you made Voltron. It's just like all of those things put together. Like Leon was like, why is this Transformers? I was like, it's Japanese. At some point, a giant robot has to appear.
It's not. It isn't actually Japanese. It's not Japanese animated. Because I know they have done Japanese animated Batman before. Because
there is a
Asimir, I think, did the Batman manga.
There is a Batman manga, and
same guy did. Oh God, what else did he do? Silent Mobius.
Oh yeah, I've picked it up and flicked through it a few times and nearly walked out with like one of the books going, I do wonder what this is actually like a Eastern take on a Western story. I wonder what that looks like. So going back to the Joker stuff, we were sort of going through the Jokers and somebody said, oh, well, whatever. It was certainly a lot better than Jack Nicholson. And there was a silence. Very much like I left there. A silent pause. And I was waiting for somebody because I was itching. And then G, my tattooist, went, well, I don't know, I quite like Jack Nicholson as Joker. And I was like, oh, thank God, somebody said it. Oh.
I thought we all like Jack Nicholson's Joker. It's interesting. It's a really good take on it.
He was really good as Joker because he was insane in that role and in general.
I think as well you have to take, because Batman in the context of the time, like 1989, superhero movies were dead.
And again, like I say, it's amazing how things sort of relate to each other. So the conversation that I said was, I went, look, I'm really sorry, but original Batman has a very special place in my heart because as a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy who was very much into comics, and I was reading the comics and, you know, like, oh, you know, this is this, and trading comics and swapping comics and being very much into it. Then somebody went, there's a film of the thing that you've been reading all this time. I couldn't comprehend that. Now, if you think of a child today, it's like, which superhero movie do you want to watch this week?
Yeah, very much.
Because they're basically
it's kind of mad to me just how massive superhero movies have got.
Biggest genre out there, hands down. It's just blowing everything.
I remember they kind of died a second death in the early 90s, on mainly down to your Batman and Robins and the like.
Yeah.
Because it took X-Men to come back, and even then X-Men was kind of a real tentative step back into superheroes. And at the time, people were like, oh God, X-Men, that's going to flop like, you know...
It was a little...
it's insane looking at it from today's perspective.
It was dipping the toe back into the superhero genre to see if anybody gave a shit. And apparently people were ready for it. It was the time. But in 1989, 1990, 1991, nobody knew of superheroes unless you had a comic book in your hand.
And the comics were the 90s were kind of a dark time for comics. I mean that both literally and figuratively, because obviously it was a time of grimdark, you know, grimdark superheroes like Spawn, and mullet Superman. Yeah. Remember Superman had a mullet.
Yeah.
And
they killed him.
They killed him and brought him back 4 times. It's been ages since I've read The Death of Superman. Were there 4 Supermans?
So Superman. 4 it came back.
Is the plural? The plural must be supermen.
Yeah,
not Supermans.
Yes, so it came back as here's 4 different comics you can read. One was some very strange cyborg.
He was a robot in one of them.
Yeah, one was an evil Superman.
Was Superboy one of them? Am I making that up?
See, I own the Death of Superman. What is essentially the Death of Superman, but it's called Superman Doomsday.
Oh, the animated one.
And on there is a documentary of the whole process of the Death of Superman, and it does talk about the 4 spin-offs.
It's been so many years since I read it, though.
A little while after, then they actually brought the real Superman back, and I'm sure he had to kill off the other Superman.
Was that when he had electric powers as well?
Oh, there was
electric powers and a mullet. Am I making this up? Am I having a stroke?
No, there was a mullet. There was a black suit. There was the black, because in the most recent, in the Justice League film, he was supposed to have the black suit.
We'll get onto Justice League a bit later, maybe when.
Have you seen it?
I have, yeah.
See, already you're sounding like you didn't like it.
I have mixed opinions on it.
Mixed is fine, because I have mixed opinions, but I might have to reveal my...
Don't reveal yourself, even if people can't see you.
Well, that might not be a thing for much longer.
Oh no, you're bringing in a camera.
There's a whole camera thing going on.
Oh no.
But yeah, I don't want to spoil the surprise on that. Jeez, come on. So we were talking about Jokers and Jack Nicholson's Joker, and we sort of said, Jack Nicholson, for its time, was the Joker. And
I think for a lot of people, he was the definitive Joker.
Yeah, and he was fantastic. There's no other way to slice it. I mean, you think about some of the levels that they put in that. There's the bit where he goes to the art gallery, and he's put makeup on to make himself
look normal. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen Batman, but I can remember that bit.
He goes to see Vicky Vale, and they have the meal, and the meal is just... It's truly terrifying. That experience is terrifying. Because I think... Has he killed everybody in the place?
With gas? Is that the gas bit?
He's gassed everyone to death. They've destroyed the art gallery.
It's coming back to me now.
They go in, he sits down, they have the conversation, she throws the water in his face. As this film came out, 20 years ago, I'm going to go... Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the original Batman by this point, there is no
by 20 you unfortunately mean 30. It was 1989, the original Batman. 29 years old.
I'm going to talk about something, because we've got 2 conversations to have later on in this, and I'm going to talk about the statute of limitations on spoilers.
I think for some of the stuff we might want to discuss, we might just have to throw in the great big spoiler alerts, because there's no way we can talk about certain new things without going into spoilers. You have to talk around the issue so hard that it's just not worth it. For Batman, if you've not seen the 1989 Batman, then I think we've passed the statute of limitations.
So this is an interesting conversation. What is the statute of limitations on spoilers? How long's Deadpool 2 been out? 2 weeks?
Yep.
So do we still need to do spoiler alert?
Yeah,
Infinity
definitely.
War.
I would argue you have got probably maybe 2 or 3 years before you can say, or if it's a film that not everyone will have seen, because maybe it's a bit out there, it's not really fair to spoil it. There's a trope called "Everything to Know About the Crying Game," and have you ever heard the film The Crying Game?
I have heard and seen.
Yeah, and what does everybody know about The Crying Game?
The lady man.
Yeah, exactly. But that's all everyone knows about that film.
Yeah.
But that's the point. That would be considered a spoiler if that was released today. This film, but now it's all everyone knows about it.
Yeah, that's all anybody knows. It's like Deliverance.
Yeah, exactly.
There's one thing that everybody knows about Deliverance, and that's Julian Banderas.
Yeah.
And something about, I don't know, there's some reference to bacon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's the point, is that particularly like these really big iconic films, they're gone.
He died. The guitar side of Julian
Really?
Windows, the guy
Wow.
that played him, he died recently. There you go, fun fact. Hollywood Babylon right there for you kids. I totally lost. I think we're still talking
Statute of Limitations.
Yeah, because I'm just jumping around. I'm all over the map today. Jeez. Me and Paul did.
You need to keep me on track, Andy.
I think it was the part 2 of his WrestleMania special, which we did like weeks apart. And the first one I was like, so tell me about WrestleMania, and he told me about WrestleMania. And the second one I was like, right, tell me about WrestleMania whilst we talk about these other 20 things.
Did you? Are you a wrestling fan?
How do I get this across properly? So when I was a child, wrestling, yay. I think I've done what everybody did with wrestling. I was a fan as a child, but not a massive fan. I didn't own any figures or a wrestling ring, but I watched it. Then jump 10 years or so, got back into it randomly, early 20s, watched a load of wrestling, and then got out of it. And then thanks to, or because of, whichever way you want to slice that, Paul, I keep a finger in the wrestling pie.
Oh.
No? Toe in the water of wrestling?
Finger in the wrestling pie.
No, is that not it? Many fingers, many pies. That's what I'm going with.
Oh,
I'm not
in
American pie.
a wrestling match, fingers could go all kinds of dreadful places, and I want to be a finger in that particular pie. Sweat and hair.
As I often say to Paul, there are interesting elements to the wrestling. For me, it's how appalling those people are treated by that company. They get very little money for making that company huge amounts. Like if you look at some certain sports in America, the NFL will happily pay one human being $150 million to do their job because that team will make several billion off their back. Now, I got no issues with that. I know the whole concussion stuff and things like that. I think that they do need to do better stuff around those things. They offered $1 billion. The people who were taking them to court went, you got to be joking. All of that I'm down with. Whereas a wrestler gets paid, some of the highest paid wrestlers get maybe $2 or $3 million, and that company makes billions off their back. It's ridiculous. And that's my take on a lot of the wrestling stuff.
I have to admit, I know it sounds like I'm being very quiet because I know almost nothing about wrestling, you see. So I was just interested if you were sort of into it or not, because I've got friends who are.
There's a game there. There's a PS3. Not even a PS4, there's a PS3 game there. Royal Rumble that we use for our respective nights of things. Every now and then someone rolls out a PS3. And every now and then somebody
excavates a PS3.
I think it's like 2013 or something, so, current.
2013 isn't current, it's 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Nice and current. I don't even know where we are now. Now we're talking about wrestling.
Because you've gone off on wrestling. I blame you entirely.
How many coffees? 1, 2, 3. This might be coffee.
I think you were talking about the statute of limitations. Shall we try and finish this bit?
Statute of limitations on spoilers.
On spoilers, and whether or not I think if things are big and iconic. It's we know Ares dies. We know Vader is Luke's father. We know the sled is called Rosebud. You know what I mean? These things.
Just throwing them all out.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. No one can be offended by those. But there are certain other films like a film like The Mist is a great film, and it's got a twist ending. It came out probably. I'm not going to go into the twist ending, but the point is it's got one. And it came out, say, maybe over a decade ago, but I would feel very uncomfortable spoiling that film for people.
Great movie.
It's an absolutely great movie.
So I again, one of those films that I know an awful lot about. The whole thing about the reason why that has a twist ending. Because it had a different ending.
Well, I know the Stephen King novel it's based on has got very different. I know Stephen King was very was kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
Because obviously I watched this maybe the last couple of years. Because the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, no, we're gonna have to spoiler alert this now." That wasn't the point of this little.
What I don't know whether we'll have to spoil it because I don't know if we need to do the ending. I can talk about the ending without actually saying the ending because I know about the reason why the ending of that film went the way it did, and it was all down to the director not getting a job.
You know what? This is all sounding very familiar to me. I wonder if I've read this somewhere.
If I said to you, the Crystal Skull, does that mean anything?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He was making The Mist, didn't get the director's role for the Crystal Skull, and went, you know what? Fuck the lot of you, I'm going to change the ending to the skull.
Bullet dodge, though, there.
Oh, yeah. I bet now he's looking down at it going, wow, he Ruffaloed it. I saw a video the other day about Matt Ruffalo, how he is the Bruce Willis of real life. He's simultaneously the luckiest and unluckiest man at the same time. Because, you know, was John McClane lucky or unlucky? It's a great question. You know, is he the luckiest man in the world, or is he the most unluckiest man in the world? Because he gets stuck in Nakatomi Plaza, but he saves the day. You know, he just so happened to be at that airport, but he saves the day. Yeah,
I mean, he was in Die Hard 4, which is a tragedy for everyone involved.
Die Hard 4.
Was there a fifth one?
Die Hard 5. No, I don't recognise either of these films.
No.
Did we have this conversation last time?
We may well have. Again, it's been a while.
So this is a remake of Podcast 1.
Shall we
This is a reboot.
Shall we just throw Podcast 1 in the bin and start again?
Oh wow, that's going to save me a huge editing job.
Just fire it into the sun. It's fine.
I was going to say something then, but then realised that I wouldn't be able to upload this podcast either. Right. So, we are now 28 and a half minutes into a podcast and we haven't even spoken about the first thing that we were going to talk about. That's
because I'm going to blame you entirely for
Whoa! You're going to blame me for something? You are the first person in this world that's ever blamed me for anything.
Well, the other option is
nobody ever blames me.
Well, the other option is that I take some level of personal accountability, and I'm not cool with that.
There's a great thing in a Justice League episode where now then I have to get it the right character. Was the Atom DC? Or was the Atom Marvel?
I believe the Atom was... Oh, God.
You know the guy that played Dr. Cox in Scrubs?
Yeah.
If it's the Atom, he voiced the Atom in the Justice League cartoon. And there's a bit where he's...
Was he in Justice League Unlimited or something?
He was really, really small and he was fixing something. And he had like a communicator talking to his assistant who was out in the big world. And he was like, oh, unfortunately I'm going to have to blame you for this one. And she's like, why? And he's like, because if it's not your fault, then it would be my fault. And that can't possibly happen. And that's always stuck with me as, that's a great argument.
Yeah.
It has to be your fault, because otherwise it'd be my fault, and that's not right.
Yeah, I'm not taking any level of personal accountability. It's your job.
And I wouldn't expect you to, Sam.
It's your job as the host to wrangle your guests.
Take all blame.
Wrangle your guests.
To wrangle.
And I'm sure you've had more excitable guests than me on.
Oh, believe me. Whew. Anyway, right, let's do it. Okay, you are officially the second most prepared podcast guest I've ever had.
Wow.
Do you know why?
Why's that?
Because yesterday you sent me a text message that said, okay, cool, I'll see you tomorrow. And by the way, these are the things I want to talk about.
I just thought I'd give some structure to proceedings. I mean, my ideal kind of podcast in some ways, if we decide to do this in a future episode, would be to both go either do a cultural exchange, which is always interesting. I watch a thing you love, you watch a thing I love, or we both watch something that we've never seen before, and then discuss said thing. Both of those can be really interesting ways to get different takes on things.
We're on the cusp of new podcast stuff. Like I said, we'll talk later, and we're going to try something today. It's probably going to fail horribly, which is perfectly fine because it is a trial. But yeah, and don't get me wrong, because I was like, yeah, somebody has actually cared enough to go, here's the stuff that I'd like to talk about. Because I generally go, here's the stuff that I want to talk to you about. What do you think? And people go, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, is there anything you don't want to talk about? And people are like, no, not really. Just don't ask me this or don't ask me that. And I'm like, cool. But that's generally me doing the legwork. And don't get me wrong, I've done some legwork for today. I've probably done more legwork today than I've ever done.
Oh, wow. Make me feel kind of bad here.
As I said, there's another document. We will get to it.
I've done so much work and you've done shit, Sam.
I'm such a tease, aren't I? I've teased this all the way through. People are going to get to the end and go, that was crap. But
you're like the worst girl.
I was so happy to see that somebody had gone, hey, let's talk about this. I was like, yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that in 35 minutes. So, what did you want to talk about?
There's a few things, but the first one I want, it's sort of obvious, nice. It was supposed to be an ease in, but we've sort of eased ourselves in quite nicely.
We've lubed ourselves in.
Yeah, okay. I've just gone in full force. The first one is sort of the obvious couple of things. Is the two new Marvel films that are out.
And what might those two new Marvel films be, Sam?
Apologies, I've got space aids.
You do have space aids.
It'd be Deadpool 2 and Infinity War, and I have very differing opinions on them. So I'm not sure which one of those you would like to discuss first.
Let's do it chronologically. So let's go Infinity War.
Okay.
Now
I actually watched that one later, but that's more fresh in my mind as well.
Let me cast my mind back. James and I did a Infinity War spoiler-free Infinity War review.
Are we at the point now where we can spoil it, or do we want to?
I don't think we can.
That's fine then.
I don't think
there's plenty to discuss around the kind of obvious spoilers, because I went into Infinity War with a lot of trepidation.
Why?
Because there was so much to deal with. Was it Black Panther?
Right. So I think I'm trying to refresh my mind. Me and James have done a review, and I think we might have done a review of Black Panther followed by a spoiler-free review of Infinity War. Black Panther is the highest, or was, I don't know what's changed, but Black Panther was the highest rated Marvel film.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember whether I've mentioned this or not, but I thought Black Panther was alright.
92.6% or something.
I believe it's about 96 or something. It's really,
that might
really
be.
high.
I know it had a 6 in it. And a 9. And a 2. 26.9%. There we go. Black Panther is the highest rated Marvel film.
Yeah.
And my question is, why?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad film.
It isn't a bad film.
I enjoyed it for what it was worth.
Yes.
But it's a very standard Marvel film, and no politics, no religion, and all that. But the politics surrounding the film, I think, have filtered into the review scores.
I would agree, and we could probably leave it there.
We can. I mean, again, it's an interesting discussion, but not necessarily one I want to get into. But fundamentally, I don't think it's a amazing film, but I do think it's watchable. But the idea that it's worth it's riding higher than one of the best films ever is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I have issues when something is reviewed as best ever when it isn't. And if it's reviewed as the best ever when it isn't for a different reason, I have issue with that. It's quite simple.
Can you divorce any film from its politics and its the surrounding hype and stuff like that? It's like, because it's all subjective, and maybe the film really did resonate with some of those reviewers heavily. I think a lot of reviewers in all that, whether it be video games, films, or whatever, I think there's a lot of people who are too in bed with the producers of those media, and so they don't feel like they can give it a bad review.
Yep.
But in Black Panther, I definitely think it was its politics that swayed it upwards. But as a film, it is fine. I enjoyed it. It is. But I've forgotten most of it, and that's telling, really.
Yeah. I think I was listening to a Bill Burr podcast when he said that his review of Black Panther, great film, is that. His wife's review, was it Bill Burr or was it Ralph Garman? Somebody's wife said that it's not just a great film for the black community, it's a great film for women. because women are a huge part of that film. Other than the Black Panther and the bad guy, the rest of it's women.
I suppose that is true.
Oh, Martin Freeman, whatever the hell character he's playing these days, I really don't get what's going on there.
Again, I can't say I really noticed that aspect of it, which is probably good.
I can't say I really noticed Martin Freeman in that film. Although I do believe he was supposedly quite a big part of it. Sorry, I'm just opening the door because it's driving me to the wall. So, that wasn't... Black Panther wasn't your trepidation around Infinity War?
It wasn't, no. My trepidation around Infinity War was just, how are we going to resolve all of this bullshit? And I felt they possibly did as well as they could, considering all the nonsense they had to deal with. I don't feel like Infinity War it doesn't feel like a film to me. It feels like an event, just a slab of stuff happening with no real beginning, middle and end. Like, if you can imagine showing Infinity War to someone who had never seen any of the other Marvel films, they wouldn't have a fucking clue what was going on.
Can I imagine doing that, or did I do that? Because you've got to remember, me and James took Paul...
Jesus.
To see Infinity War.
Well, did he have a fucking clue what was going on?
Well, I think at that point in time, he had seen, officially, Iron Man.
Okay.
And Black Panther. And the only reason I know he'd seen Black Panther was because we took him to Black Panther before Infinity War.
That would be a bit of a tough watch for poor old Paul.
I think he caught up on his sleep. That's not a joke. He slept through some of it.
It's really long.
They're all really long.
I mean, I know this one had to be long.
Yeah.
I suppose my main...
It didn't feel long, though.
No.
Okay, for me, it didn't feel long at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was like, I've got to drive home now.
My main problem with the film, really, is that Thanos is like his motivation for what he does makes no sense whatsoever. And that's what... is this spoiler territory, or is this known from previous films?
I was just about to say... I think you're riding the wave of spoiler territory.
Yeah, and that's...
I don't know.
I will say his motivations to me make no sense. And I don't know whether this is because it's been transferred from the comics without some surrounding other stuff around it, or...
See, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he said the controversy around the fact that people didn't know that Infinity War was going to be 2 parts was part of it. So then a lot of people went in, sat down, watched it, and came out going, what's happening? Where's the rest? But a mate of mine was like, if you read the book of Infinity War, you know what happens at the end. You know how they resolve anything that might
I haven't read them, I'll be honest with you, so I know...
So somebody said to me, they were like, oh, well, how are they going to sort this out? And I was like, I know how they sort this out. I know how this is resolved.
Oh, it's so tough talking about this without spoilers.
You see, weirdly, part of me sitting there going, sod it, we might as well we might have to break the spoiler thing. Because a friend of mine said, you need to put a spoiler warning on the beginning of your podcast. And you need to pre-record something that says, dear podcast listeners, just be aware that this podcast contains spoilers. And if you don't want to spoil something for yourself, you might have to skip certain sections. We will try and give you as much information as possible and things like that. However, it's full of spoilers, and then you can just do spoilers through. You can just talk freely. So that might be something to look at further down the line. At this point in time, I think it's still fresh
enough to be unfair to spoil.
Yeah,
which I can agree with.
Yeah. So for now, we might have to stick with it. Who's to say? Because what I was thinking was we might do a thing where we go, let's do a podcast review of Infinity War, where we literally say this is a review.
It'd be good to get the relevant, because like James and stuff would be a great one to get. I get the feeling he has different views on it to me, which could be quite interesting.
Something that's interesting. I don't know whether to say about James or James in general. James generally loves everything. I've gone to say to him,
I've been accused of the opposite.
Yeah, you hate everything. everything in the world ever. Not maybe everything. James loves everything. There's stuff I've gone to say to him, God, that was fucking awful. And he's gone, oh, that was great. And I'm like, what? And then he'll talk about it. And it's like, you know when you're a little bit envious of somebody where you go, I wish I had your view of things. Because he loves everything.
It must be a nice sort of way to be.
He's like, oh, watch this. Oh, God, it was awful, wasn't it? No, it was great. What? Oh, yeah, it was brilliant. I loved it. Oh, and then he'll talk about aspects that were really good about something. And you go, I suppose it wasn't that bad.
I can't stop myself being critical about things, mainly because there are so many things, so much media out there, that I feel like you have to be picky and you have to be critical. Otherwise, you'll just be engulfed in a wave of garbage.
I get torn because I listen to a lot of Kevin Smith stuff. Kevin Smith is synonymous with this podcast and many others because he does about 5 or something. And something that he says often that sticks with me quite a lot is you shouldn't ever criticise anything. You shouldn't criticise something that somebody's created. You should just go and do something better. If you believe it's shit, do something better.
I completely disagree with this as a concept.
Which is perfect.
The idea being that you can't criticise because you can't do any better. That's kind of nuts. If the trains don't run on time, I don't believe that I can make those trains run on time. But that's not my job.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure that's what he's actually saying. I think what he's saying is, if you watch a film and you go, that film was rubbish, then and you go, the story was terrible, then your response should be, and here's how I would have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love doing stuff like that. Yeah, that's. The thing is, that's a bit different. I agree. I agree with him there. Then I perhaps took the wrong takeaway from that. But the idea that if that's constructive criticism, just saying something is shit is neither helpful or that can be fun, but it's not particularly helpful. But yeah, constructive criticism is that's terrible. This would have made it quite cool.
You see, I've had this thing that I had a friend of mine, Pete, who's done a podcast that I recently released. When we first spoke about doing a podcast, he didn't want me to have any illusions, and I read a lot of articles. I read a book that had a load of podcast stuff in it, various different things. Because one thing you need to do is you need to prepare yourself for podcasting. So number one,
prepare your body.
Number one, do not expect to make a single penny off it because you won't. Don't go into it.
Does anyone go into podcasting? I suppose some people go to YouTube careers, don't they? Where they're expecting to make a bang.
Yeah, I was looking at something. There's a guy that I follow. He does music. He does metal versions of songs. And I saw a thing today that he's having built a new studio, and I was like, he must make a little bit of money, because this is a guy who essentially went, I'm going to play every instrument, I'm going to video it, I'm going to do a metal version of... He does a metal version of a song from Frozen.
Yeah, I imagine there's quite a few people who do that kind of thing.
The Power of Love and stuff like that. And he just does these little videos, but he's obviously become popular enough to make enough money to build a brand new studio and stuff like that. People out there do make money. Rule number one, podcasting, don't expect to make a penny off it, because you won't. And what they say is, until you've got 100,000 people that are listening on a weekly basis, downloading on a weekly basis, you won't ever make any money.
Yeah, it's a snowballing effect on all of these kind of things.
At this point in time, I can categorically say I think I have one listener. And that one listener is Paul Williams.
Wow. But a lot of that, if you do genuinely want to make more of this sort of stuff, rather than just being an amusing thing you do just to sort of pass the time and hone your sort of editing skills and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's down to advertising as well, as much as you can.
And really, there's...
And the YouTube algorithm makes that very, very difficult. I think you have to do a lot of sort of grassroots work on that sort of thing.
I've been talking a lot recently about what we're going to do next as far as the podcast is concerned, and where we're going to take it forward. And there's going to be like a board meeting of
board meeting.
Yeah, of anybody that's ever been on the podcast, and it's going to be like
I love the idea that it's like, it'd be like, tiers of board members on there.
Oh,
the Justice League.
Yeah. I'm going to
like this Batman tier, and it's like, oh no, you're like the...
I'm going to get a big table. Well, it either has to be round or really, really long. Like a real long board.
Yeah, you've got your Batman, you've got the Question, and then you've got your really rubbish ones.
Plastic
Man's a Stone Cold classic, but he is rubbish. Absolutely rubbish.
I think there was a point when I'd seen something where there was like 3 different stretchy people. There was like Plastic Man and then 2 others, and it's like, who the hell are these guys? Why do we need them?
I'm racking my brains for the absolute Z list as they had in Death of Superman, because they've got a shit Justice League in that.
Isn't there a guy that's like made of paper, or he's really flat, or like a flat Stanley kind of character?
The answer is yes.
Oh
but
my God.
But I don't know if he's in that. I'm sure he definitely exists as a superhero.
Wow.
We've veered off again, so let's get back onto podcasts.
So you've got your rules for podcasts. One is
don't veer off onto weird tangents.
Yeah, don't ever expect to make any money, and number 2 is don't veer off on weird tangents. You see, at this point in time, I'm struggling to remember how we got on to talking about podcasts.
Again,
I'm the worst host.
Again, I think I'm going to have to blame you. Not just for this. For lots of things.
Is there anything in your life that you blame me for?
Well, not you. I've never once taken any kind of personal accountability for anything.
And how's that worked out so far? Well?
Yeah, pretty great. I mean, I've got a free conscience at all times.
That's fantastic.
I've never truly felt any remorse for anything either. Not really. I've been sorry that I've been caught.
When you're using lines like, I'm sorry that you feel you need an apology, if you know you've reached
exactly. If I'm at work and I say, I'm sorry, what I mean is, I'm sorry you caught me doing that.
I'm sorry for you. And just leave it at that.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. And, fill in the blank. Infinity War.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about.
We were talking about Infinity War, and I think I've sort of gone through a lot of my thoughts. So again, sort of skirting around the spoilers.
So
it's a film with a lot of stuff going on, and it doesn't really work as a proper film, just as a big event. And honestly, it's like it's just a whiz bang. There's almost no plot. There's about 15 minutes of plot in the thing, and the rest of it's kind of a 2-hour video game cutscene.
Should we talk about the trailers for Infinity War?
You can. I mean, I didn't really get into the hype of it. I want to watch it like weeks later, so I don't really know a great deal about the trailers. So apologies for that.
So there's this new thing that companies.
I'm not really sorry. That was me apologising in the way that
I didn't think you would.
No, I'm not sorry at all.
There's this new thing that Marvel seems to have started it, but they're not the only ones that are doing it. Where they release a series of trailers to get people hyped. People go and watch the film. They go, oh, that film was good, bad, and different. And they walk out and they walk away, and that's the end of it. And then somebody inevitably goes, do you remember that bit in the trailer?
That wasn't in the film. I think that's quite common these days, as you say.
Now, every person, whoever makes films, trailers, whatever, everybody's been guilty of it for a long time. But when I watched a video that was, here's all the stuff that were in the trailers for Infinity War that weren't in the film, and I think they had 20 things.
I wonder if that's an editing thing, though. Did they intend to have them in there?
Now then. This actually leads us on to something else, which is our other subject, which is Deadpool 2. Because the trailers for Deadpool 2
I'm sure they deliberately lied.
Very specific. They have done a very, very nice job with the trailers of Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
So
I have seen the Deadpool 2 trailers.
In Infinity War, they released a load of trailers, and then a lot of the stuff that was in the trailers wasn't in the film. And they are still showing trailers now going, hey, check out this trailer for Infinity War. And now it's the thing that's synonymous by you, because you go, that's not in the film. That's not in the film. That person wasn't there. Because some of it is a proper, they've had to physically edit things into scenes to release the trailers.
I mean, it's a fairly common thing, even on films, to edit, put stuff in a trailer that has a completely different context to how it does in the film. So misleading trailers, I think, have been a thing since the dawn of forever. I don't know if it's just getting worse. Like, are they deliberately filming stuff that isn't in a film, or are they just cutting it later on?
Editing is one thing, but I'm starting to think that it's done on purpose. There is something in the Infinity War trailer that you can't tell me they cut out. I think they did it specifically for the trailer to get people interested. Because, like I say, they're still showing that trailer now, going, look, this is what Infinity War is.
And even if you say it's not in the film, is it particularly immoral to do it?
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I think we need to get onto the Deadpool 2 stuff because I think this highlights a little bit more. But James has mentioned something about Solo. The trailer for Solo shows things that aren't in the film and lines that aren't in it.
I mean, we might want to come on to that later, but Solo in general has had a troubled development.
Well, you know, when you're on your second director...
I'm sure, didn't James say he was on the third?
Yeah.
There's not many films that have survived a director change. We were talking about Justice League earlier. And if there has been 2 director changes, it's almost certainly going to be a mess of some kind, and the reviews have panned out on that to some degree.
So, let's accelerate forward, because we've got a lot to get through. You know, at this point, I'm like, this could be the first 3-hour podcast.
We might have to have a loo break. Or save it for the next time, which might be a better way of doing things.
But we can do a natural break, because at some point I'll have to edit all of this together. And what was nice was when Pete came, and at one point he was like, are we able to, have a break? And I was like, yeah, of course we can, because that's a natural break. And he was like, cool. We both went to the toilet, came back, pressed record, and carried on. And it was beautiful.
I assume we go to the toilet at the same time. Cross swords.
You can assume that if you like. I can't confirm or deny that way. Are you done with Infinity War? Do you want to say anything else about it?
No, if we're staying spoiler free, it makes it a kind of a tough, because so much stuff happens in that film.
So what I'm going to offer up to you is that I'm going to say that we should do a podcast review Infinity War. Me, you, and the big Jimbo. Get the Keepster on it.
The Keepster.
Get him in the room.
Oh no, has he got a nickname now? I don't want a nickname. Don't give me a nickname.
I think his nickname is Armageddon, isn't it? I heard James used as a threat the other day. There was a conversation going on a group chat, and he was used as a threat. It was like, and I actually went back on it. It's nice to see that James is now being used as a threat against people doing things.
I do feel like we're kind of. I'm not laying into him at all. I love the guy. I feel like I have to point that out
before you lay into him.
I'm not laying into him. We sometimes we have opposing views on a variety of things, and it could be fun. It could be fun getting him into a room.
Almost everything.
I don't know. I think it'd be fun to talk about Infinity Wars. I'm sure we'll have very different.
So I'm saying it now. I think the 3 of us should get together and we should do a actual review of a series of different films. Infinity War being one. I think we should do Deadpool 2 as well, maybe at the same time, although I imagine that's going to be
There might be more of a consensus on that one, I feel.
Okay, so rather than spending another hour teasing the Deadpool 2 stuff, let's talk about Deadpool 2. So, where do we start? Do we start with the trailers for Deadpool 2, or we just jump straight into not talking about it so that we don't have to spoil anything?
There's not as much to spoil in Deadpool 2, really.
Screen just went off. Don't know what that was about.
I mean, honestly, I'm just going to say right now, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I really, really enjoyed Deadpool 2.
So, the number one question that I've been asked by people that haven't seen it, and I think it's a great question, is it better than the first one?
In my opinion, yes.
And I think that's the general consensus.
Because I went with some trepidation to Deadpool 2 as well, because Deadpool's sort of thing is like, it's the first, 18 rated superhero. It probably isn't, but you know what I mean? It's the first 18 rated superhero movie in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's got all the violence, it's got all the sweary bits, it's got all the sexy jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of its thing. It's like, can Deadpool 2 feel as fresh? And it doesn't, but it also just goes full retard. It's not bothered from the start. I describe it as having an airplane approach to gags. In Airplane, not every gag will land. But it doesn't matter. As a new gag, 5 seconds later, maybe you'll like this one.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it all the way through.
It's like a famous comedian trying out new material.
It's so stupid that I couldn't help but enjoy every second of it.
It's great. It is great. And here's the thing, and I'm saying this now, I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again somewhere down the line. I nearly walked out of that film.
I can imagine, I think I know at what point.
So, very early on, some might say at the beginning, maybe when the credits were rolling, I nearly got up and walked out of that film. So that's saying something for me to then say, I thought it was brilliant. I thought, and I'm probably going to go out on a limb and say, I do think it was better than the first one. But I've already covered this in various conversations I've had with people. I think it's better than the first one because the first one is... Ryan Reynolds said, the problem you've got with the first movie is it's an origin story.
It's got the origin movie problems.
You've got to get the story out of the way. The joy you have with the second one, you don't have to do all that. You can get straight to the action. Which, let's face it, that film does. I
tell you what, considering because it is basically a comedy film at its core, the actual action scenes are really, really well done.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how spoilery it is, but I think we can say this. The domino bits, sort of later on in the film, that choreography on it is really, really excellent. Yep. It's just really, really well done.
Yep.
I would say I enjoyed the action scene. That one action scene in Deadpool more than all of the computer-generated schlock in Infinity War. Because it's just, I don't know, it's just more personal. I thought it was all the characters in Deadpool 2 I thought were great as well. Everything was just, it had the returning people, it had all the newbies, and particularly... The really budget X-Force. Again, it's so tough without going into spoiler territory. But basically, they get all the X-Force, and they're the shittest X-Force you've ever seen. Full-on 90s, worst of X-Force. I was like, Jesus Christ, who is this Poundland X-Force they're getting here? But the way it resolves itself, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's so good. I sometimes I'm like, how do you review something that's good?
Because it's tough, isn't it? It's really hard.
Because when you've said, oh, it was great, I really liked it, such a good film, better than the first one, where do you go from there? It was great. I find
this generally true, because I review a lot of games, and I find reviewing games very difficult when I find them very, very good. I think it's like, I enjoyed that, and... That's easy to say. I find games that are very flawed but interesting to be I can write for hours about them. Or games that are just flat out shit where you can just
because there's just lay in. There's so much more to say about something that's not as good.
But I think the most interesting ones are things where you can obviously see that spark of potential.
So me and James are playing State of Decay 2.
Ooh, I've heard some not great things about that one.
Yeah, and it's not great.
I've heard it's a bit... It could have used another year in the oven, that one.
Oh, so much so. So, having said that, me and James have been playing State of Decay 2. We played that yesterday from... I want to say 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Till 12 o'clock at night.
Jesus.
And that's a game that's not very good. Its co-op is so full of bugs... You just wouldn't even know where to start to list them.
It's quite interesting. It is cross-play with the PC, so for people who don't have Xbones but do have PCs, you might be able to convince them on that.
It's something that I think we've missed a trick with cross-play. And I know we have to be elitist, and I know we have to be whatever, but why don't companies see that they would sell more?
I think it's pure. I think it's purely a business decision.
If you got it on the PlayStation, I've had to buy... I think I've bought 3 games on the Xbox recently that I already own.
I'm fairly sure it is purely a business decision. But obviously Microsoft own the Windows platform and they own the Xbox one.
Business decision. In my eyes, in my opinion, it's a silly thing to do. Because if you own a PlayStation and your mate owns an Xbox, what? You're gonna go out and buy an Xbox?
I think Sony's idea is that they will go out and buy a PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, Sony have
You buy the console your mates have as a rule, and Sony's got such a stranglehold on the market comparatively.
Sony have had this whole thing for a long time about various stuff, and they're really good at making decisions. So when Rockstar said to them, we want you to give us a percentage of PlayStation sales, and Sony went, why would we do that? It's like, because people buy your machine for our game. And Sony went, yeah, we're not going to do that. Right, okay, so we're going to go and talk to the Microsoft people across the road. And then they went and sold Grand Theft Auto to both companies. Because Sony make really good decisions about things. Make it cross-platform. Like I say...
that's definitely the consumer. That's definitely the best for a consumer. But whether it's best from Sony's business... They must have a reason for not doing it. One, it might be a pain to implement, so the cost is simply not worth it.
Sure. But doesn't help me because I've had to buy 3 games in the last few weeks.
If you do want to play Xbone games, there is a lot of cross-play with PC now.
There is. So, I've recently dipped back into... say what you want. I've recently dipped back into DC Universe, which I was playing on the PlayStation 4. Basically, a game that I've had since day one.
That's always had cross-play, hasn't it?
So I had it on the PS3 day one, because it was only available on the PS3, then it's moved over to various things. I downloaded it on the Xbox recently, and started playing it with James, but that's got cross-platform to the PC.
It happens a lot more now, certainly on MMOs.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because your PC gamers have got sort of a reputation for
what, elitist PC game?
Yeah, and it's
I don't know what you mean.
It is fair. I used to be very much a I used to own both consoles and PC. This generation, I've not owned the consoles because they've not really felt like they've had enough on them to justify it for me.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a bit. Deadpool 2, do we really need to say anything else? Like I said, it's really hard
It's really hard to say it, but I thoroughly enjoyed pretty much every aspect of it.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm fairly critical on my films. I'm fairly critical about a lot of things. And I just came out of that and thought that was fucking brilliant. I enjoyed every second of that.
Yeah, I mean, like and
I say the review, that's the problem. It's just like, fucking brilliant, go see it, 5 out of 5. Where'd you go with that?
Yeah, what do you do? I'm going to say it, and then we can discuss it. So I'll just get it out there. Solo.
I've not seen it.
Do you have any interest in seeing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I will go and see it.
Right, okay.
Probably. The reviews have been very unkind. I mean, they've been...
The third worst reviewed Star Wars movie ever, did you say?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And because it's such a big movie by such a big studio, it's like 70% doesn't sound that bad, but you know that's including the inflation from being a untoppable franchise. So it's probably sitting much lower than that in reality.
Yeah, it is. So, I paraphrased a Bill Burr joke the other day when I was talking to James saying Star Wars is the stone in curling. I am more than happy to just let it go. I've got to that point now.
Are you not a big Star Wars guy?
I used to be. And you know what happened? I had that beaten out of me. So I had it beaten out of me by George Lucas when he made 3 terrible prequels.
The prequel... I think we might have mentioned this on the previous one again, so again, remaster, remake. The prequel Defense Force has started coming out recently. People are like, oh, maybe the prequels weren't so bad. It's like, no. We've got to have some standards here, guys.
Don't forget, they were awful. Now, I will caveat this to say, I've seen the first one a few times. I saw it a few years ago to remind myself of just how truly terrible it was.
Yeah.
The second one is god-awful, and at the end of the day, any film that has what I like to refer to as the pear scene should be burned and thrown into the sun. Any film that is a wrapper around that scene should be burnt, thrown into the sun, and then the sun should
Out of the prequels, I actually think the second one is worse than The Phantom Menace.
And I wouldn't ever argue. My mind is very much like a computer. At various points in time, it tries to purge information it doesn't need, and it often reaches a point where it goes, right, let's have another go at purging The Phantom Menace and the Clone Wars from existence.
The Phantom Menace, I've rewatched it a couple of times, thinking maybe, you know what? Maybe this isn't as bad as I remember, and it always is.
And it always is. And sometimes it's worse. Sometimes you go, no, it's worse than I remember it.
The reason that I rate the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, lower, is that The Phantom Menace is just a kids' film, and I can sort of file it away under the crap kids' film. Whereas Attack of the Clones doesn't know what it wants to be, because it's all tries to be all moody and grim, and then it's just got the worst dialogue. It's so clunky and awful. I've not seen it in years. I'm sort of working very much off memory here.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so confused.
So my caveat is, Revenge of the Sith, I've only seen it once. I attempted to watch it twice. The first time I fell asleep about 4 minutes into it and slept through the whole thing. The second time I sat and watched it, and at the end I seem to remember saying, of the three, that was the better one. But that still doesn't make it a good film.
It's the best of a bad bunch.
Yeah.
It's still completely terrible. People talk about it as though it's okay, and it isn't.
So that was that. So at that point in time, I was like, original trilogy, all of that sort of stuff.
And even then, Return of the Jedi's got its problems.
I, unfortunately, live in a camp of, I think Jedi was the best one. Because I'm
going to disagree on that one, but
I know there's people out there that's like, it's the whole scene in Clerks. Empire had the better ending. So you've got your original trilogy, then you've got the abominations that came after it. Then, we're going to make more Star Wars films. All right, okay. And then a bit later it was, we're going to make a Star Wars film once a week for the rest of the time. And I was like, I don't want you to do that, though. I don't need any of these
so
things.
patchy as well, these last three of them. Or
So,
4 now, I suppose.
I saw, what was the first, number 7?
Force
Awakens. One of the worst films ever made.
Oh, really? You think it's that bad? I thought it was just merely adequate.
I can't tell you much about it because my mind has been trying to get rid of it from existence.
It's not. I think it's good enough to be. As sort of strange to say, it's not good enough to be horrible. It's just adequate all the way through.
The acting's terrible. The dialogue's awful.
It's Star Wars. It's terrible in the originals too.
Yeah, the story is a terrible film. So that was that. Somebody told me I needed to watch Rogue One because it was actually okay. Mm-hmm. I watched Rogue One and went, that was alright.
That's my favourite out of the ones so far. I thought it was pretty decent.
I haven't seen
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, where again somebody said to me, it's actually really good.
I could, honestly, I could do a whole podcast on The Last Jedi, as I thought it was awful. Like, not even just because people say, it's good, but it's, it has these moments. I watched it and all the way through, all I could think of was, none of this makes any sense. It's a complete mess of a film. Absolute mess. I would not recommend it unless you want to experience that. But again, it's been so divisive, that film. Some people have absolutely loved it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying it's great.
But then a lot of people... It seems to be there doesn't seem to be much of a middle ground on...
No, it's a 50-50. You either look... It's Marmite.
It's a bit of a Marmite film, and I fall on the side of I really didn't like it.
So that was that. And I think I will probably watch it at some point just to tick a box. But I'm not rushing out. I was stood looking at it in a shop the other day, and I had the funds to buy it, and went, I might get it later. and walked away. So that was up to that point. Now we've got Solo, a Star Wars story. Okay, I don't care.
I'm with you on this one.
I don't care.
I mean, it looks alright, I guess.
And then it gets released, and it's rated as the third worst Star Wars.
After
film.
which ones?
Phantom Menace and the second one.
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus! Like what? Like it's supposedly worse than Revenge of the Sith.
It is.
You can't. The viewers can't see my face,
No,
but
nobody can
it's
see it.
one of utter disbelief.
It's. I don't care. And, again, if James was here now, he would tell me that I'm wrong. But I don't care. And they're now saying we're going to release a Star Wars film once a year for the rest of time.
I think everyone expected that out of Disney.
Which is
It's just nowhere near as well curated as the Marvel universe is. Whatever problems I have with the Marvel films, they've been very samey and we're getting a lot of superhero fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
I can't deny that there's a really firm hand at the rudder of that franchise.
Is that Kevin Feige?
It is Kevin
Feige, or whatever his name is. Or not if you're doing a quiz on it, though, is it?
Wow.
I told him he had to deal with it for a week. Because he made me deal with my wrong question. Short version is we do a quiz on a weekly basis. We went to a Marvel quiz, and somebody who shall remain nameless got the Kevin Feige question wrong when I told him it was Kevin Feige, and I can't say his surname, so that's why I gloss over the last bit of his surname. So that's Solo. I don't care.
I'm struggling.
I don't care about whatever they're doing next. I saw a thing that they said that they're going to do a Boba Fett film. Don't care. They're going to do a Lando Calrissian film. Don't care. They're going to do... I don't care.
Salacious Crumb, Jabba's little mate, as
I hope they do that. I'd go and see that.
I'd definitely see it to Slayer. Or, God, what's the name of the... Max Rebo, the keyboardist from...
Yes, I'd go and see that as well.
I don't know. I get the feeling they just don't really know what they're doing with Star Wars. Like I say, Marvel, the tone that has always been super consistent.
Yeah.
Someone really has been really steering. That's 10 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
So how many have they got now? Like probably 20 odd films.
About 20, yeah.
But Star Wars was stuck at number 4. And we've got. They're not great, frankly.
They're not great.
I mean, out of those, I would say only Rogue One.
Yeah,
is genuinely good,
and that's
The Force Awakens was all right, and The Last Jedi was bad. And I've not seen Solo, so it might be great. I honestly can't comment.
I don't know, but I don't think I care anymore. It is the stone in curling. I am prepared to let it go and watch it sail away down the thing whilst other people take care of it. I'm prepared to do that with Star Wars. I think that's where I am right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame as the expanded universe stuff, like the new expanded universe stuff, is of a much better quality. Because I think I mentioned this on the first one when it was Rebels, the CG cartoon they're doing is really good. Honestly, it is.
I hear great things about it.
It is. It's far better. It's a kids' show and it's far better written than the films, which just seems kind of mad to me. But I don't know if you can easily acquire it. Is it on Netflix or anything? I mean, I acquired it the usual way. But
highly legal and without any...
Yeah, fell off the back of the internet.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you have a means of watching things that fell off the back of the internet, I got the entire lot of it if you wanted to watch it. But it's well worth your time. It's great stuff.
Which James is a big fan of it, and he said that there's a character in Solo that's in that, and you would only know that if you'd watched that. So there you go, piece of information.
But the Clone Wars cartoon they did sort of a few years back was also excellent.
Again, I've heard good things of the CG anime stuff. So I'm gonna give you a choice right now. I'll give you 3 choices. Choice number 1, if you need to take a break, now might be the time.
Yeah, we could do with a wee willy winky.
And then, damn it. Okay, so now then when we return from our break, you've got two things you can choose from. Number one is we can do a review of the Justice League movie, or
I might have some possibly less kind things to say about that one. But...
Or we can talk about, in line with Solo, we can talk about films that are coming up in the future that I don't think I care about.
Wow.
So those are your choices.
A bit of a Sophie's choice going on there.
Right, okay, I'll tell you what, let's take a break. And it's going to be another natural break. I love stuff like this. It's so much easier on the editing process. So we'll take a break, and then when we return, Sam will tell us which he chose from those choices. So we'll be right back.
I am having to choose which of my kids has been shot. So.
But right now, we'll see you in a minute. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you go. What did you think to that? Sit down with Sam Muscroft, part 1. Tune in shortly for what will be part 2. See what we get up to in part 2. See what we have to discuss on that. It's another decent length. Like I say, me and Sam did close to 3 hours. So good 2-part episode. As always, jump over to the website, cookiecast.com. Twitter, Facebook, email, send us one of those. Give us a shout, tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to hear less of. Give us a general update with how the podcast is going in your opinion. But yeah, until the next episode, which will be very shortly, and until next time, bye-bye.